So last class we ended with just the face and just the pen illustration of one of the faces for our abstract illustration. And because I think three people over here were not have not done the class, no? This one, Viju has not done it, and
Yes.
Bhavani has not done it. Everybody else has done it. So what I can do is after maybe till 12 o'clock, I'm going to do the eyes specifically, because then around 12 o'clock, I can let you practice on your own. And during that time, Neeta, Elaine, and Sonal, since you've done this last week, we can complete this picture because I want to show you a few things in this as well. I don't want you to just do it on your own. And then when I show the picture, you'll say, Arey, but how did you do this and that? So I don't want to leave it to that. All right. Okay. So today it's eyes. And for me, I feel that being able to make the eyes in a portrait well is 50% of your job done. Everything else can be a little weird, a little wonky, and it'll still work because the eyes are more convincing of emotion, of identity. Oh, I'm frozen.
Yeah, the video froze.
Yeah, I realize that. Yeah. Right. So the rest of the face is 50%, eyes are 50%. That's why I tend to focus more on the eyes. And what we want to learn is how to control just a few things. I want to break this down into what you need to focus on largely. When we see a finished eye, we see all of it absolutely perfect, and it just seems impossible to tackle. But remember that those eyes are also one line drawn at a time. And that's what we need to do. So we just need to figure out which line to draw where, how long, how curved, and so on and so forth. And that should give us some idea of where we are. Now, the first few eyes that you will draw are going to look weird. And the reason for that is because there is something about the three-dimensionality of the eye. It's a round object placed within what looks like a flat object. And then we have to create the illusion of all of that being seamlessly tied together. Sometimes when you draw an eye, you feel that the lids are too plastic or the iris is too dead. So we want to counter all those issues. Now, the first few eyes you draw, you will start getting a few things right and a few things you won't get right. So I want you to focus on what you get right. It is very natural for the brain to pick up on things that are going wrong. That's how we've just evolved. But in the case of learning art, it's important to identify what has gone right as well. So you know what to continue to repeat. And then what has gone wrong, you can just tweak a little bit and keep moving in the right direction. So how do you tweak it? You just need to ask a few questions off that line, of that structure that you've drawn. What is the size? Is it too big? Is it too small? What is the placement? Have I placed it in the right place? Is it too high, low, left, right? You can put words to all of this. And the reason I recommend this is because once you have the words, you know the words to make it right. When you look at something and you say, oh, I don't know what is going wrong, and you don't find words, and the next time you try to make something, you're making a vague shot in the dark attempt. So instead of that, you can say, okay, my iris looks too big. Maybe I should make the next one a little small. It's looking too wide. Maybe I should make it a little narrow, so on and so forth. Just use your words. And then also there are a few things about lightness of hand and just your hand being able to do a certain task properly. That again is only practice. If you can't draw a line a certain way right now, it's because it's like the infant hand. If you've not practiced it, it'll take some time to make those lines. That's about it. So somewhere between observation, brain interference, and what the hand can draw, we are going to start creating these eyes. I'm going to start you off with one basic structure. So you know what to expect. Then we will move to pictures, and then you'll know how those same shapes are modified. Like I said, all of us have got two eyes, one nose, and a mouth, yet all our features are distinct. That's because our shape, size, proportions, all of that is different. So even if I give you one formula for making an eye, the next eye that you have to make, which belongs to a person, will use that formula with a few modifications. And those modifications you have to visually see and recreate. Okay, so I'm going to talk you through all of this. Let's start off first with just the basic shape of the eye and the proportion. We've done this last week, so this will be a little bit of a refresher for all of you. You don't have to memorize anything. So we start off with just drawing a line, a horizontal line, and don't erase any of these lines. Let them be, because this is like it's like the infrastructure that you're drawing. You need to know the connection between all the features that we're drawing. So this is the distance from the inner eye to the outer eye. And here we will draw a curve on top from one end to the other, which is slightly rounder, and the other curve from the bottom is slightly shallower. The reason for this is because we have a much more prominent and active upper eyelid, which comes down. We don't have a lower eyelid that goes up. So the flexibility of the upper lid is a lot more because of this shape and this the area that it has to cover. Now, do not join the lines on the side, because on the inside, you will have a what's I'm going to call a tear duct, and Viju can then tell us what it is called. Yeah. So we accommodate a tiny tear duct over here, which is just the rounding of the line. As you can see, it has extended beyond what I would consider the shape of the eye, a little inside. So this shape is also just a little round, not very rounded, because then it'll start looking like the tear duct of a bovine or a deer. So we don't want it like that. It's just very gentle. Then you have a lower lid, the inside of the lower lid, which actually starts as a membrane from the upper lid, skirting just above this line that we have given for the lower lid, and going and touching the upper lid on the other side. So it's a very tiny, thin membrane. This is the, what is this called? The inner line, something of the lower lid, where we are not supposed to put kajal, as I think most ophthalmologists will tell you.
Yeah, so it's just called a lid margin, which is actually made up of 2, 3 layers. So we restrict it to the inner side of the lid margin.
All right. So this is the lid margin. Okay, I'm going to write it down. All right. Now, somewhere over here, we have to draw a perfect circle. That circle need not necessarily fit within the space between the lower and the upper lid. It can also be a little covered by the upper lid. So usually for most eyes, a relaxed position is when a little part of the iris is covered by the upper lid. If your circle comes right exactly in the center, the eye tends to look very stressed, very strained. So we want to keep a little bit of that circle above the lid, but the circle has to be as perfectly a circle as possible, because if it is not, then the eye starts looking defective, and then the whole picture starts looking like it has a defect. So just so you know, what we're working towards is making a very realistic eye. Of course, you will have a range of eyes drawn in different kinds of abstractions depending upon the application you have at that point. So if you have an abstract painting like Hussein or something, he might not go through the trouble of all of this. He'll just make this and just like a oblong shape over here, and that's supposed to be an eye, and that's perfectly fine because it works with the composition. So in this case, for a realistic eye, we want to keep it very circular. And within that, concentric to that will be the lens, and that will always be a dark black spot. So this I consider our personal black hole because it receives all the light that we see. This is also a trouble sometimes when people don't take care to keep it right in the center. Sometimes it's on the side, it's not circular. These are tiny things that we can definitely manage. Now, a certain distance away, this is where the visual part comes in. A certain distance away, you are going to put a fold in the eye. So it starts off a little away from the inner eye, but not right from the tear duct. Goes around the top lid and then comes a little closer towards the outer eye. It's a little further on the inner eye side and closer on the outer eye side. Now for the eyebrow, there are different places where you will position the eyebrow. But to give us an idea, we take the same distance as the height of the eye up. And at this point, you can just draw a short horizontal line to give you a margin of where the eyebrow can be, so that you don't go too far or you don't come too near.
What was the reason for eyebrows?
Oh, you don't remember that?
No.
Okay, so the reason for eyebrows is
Did you tell this in the last lesson?
did I tell it in the last
No.
class?
No,
I
no,
did
no.
not.
You told it in another
You
session.
told us to ask you and you said
Yeah.
you think about it till next week. So, but I
Okay.
just did the lesson yesterday, so I'm most impatient. Yeah.
All right. So let me explain to you. So the eyebrows are positioned right at the brow bone, which is just above the eye socket, right? And above that, it's all flat. So this has something to do with the fact that we are one of the few animals in the world which sweat to cool the body. And it has been said that it is possible that we can outrun a cheetah or a predator that is really fast because of our sweating. We have the endurance to run a distance. Whereas sprinting animals who may charge at us will lose steam after a certain distance for themselves because they don't sweat. Now, because we sweat, imagine yourself in a primitive world where you're being chased by a saber-toothed tiger and you're sweating, and you sweat more from the head because the brain needs to stay coolest most. And then all that sweat is coming to your face, and then one drop of sweat goes into your eye, and you don't know what's happening. You blink, you fall, and that's the end of your entire lineage. So in order for that to not happen, or the fact that that did not happen, those Homo sapiens that had eyebrows probably survived, and the ones that didn't have eyebrows or tweezed them too much probably just died out when they were being chased by a saber-tooth. So it's good to know this because a few things are very interesting about the eyebrow. There's a structure to the eyebrows, which when we are not an artist, we don't realize that how important that is for just recognizing the face the way it is. The thickest part of the eyebrow is in the center. That is usually straight. As much as we would like to have it really arched, it doesn't arch beyond a point and still look natural, but it does arch at a place right outside of the circle of the eye. And then all of that whole line then turns to the side of the eye. In the drawing of the eyebrow, each brow itself, brow hair, you'll also notice that the hair starts from the center upright, and then it starts radiating outward, and then it turns on the side and starts pointing downward. Shouldn't be any logical reason. Why isn't everything pointing up? And a beginner artist will make these eyebrows either in one sweep line like this, or they're all pointing outward in the same like northeast, northwest direction. So again, the hair is specifically meant to trap the sweat and to train it in a direction towards gravity. And then with gravity, it will start leaking on the side of your eye, and your eye can potentially stay blink free. So now that you know this, when we come
Amazing.
to the eyebrow,
So that's why the men have thicker eyebrows.
yeah, because they
They were
have
the
to run
people
a lot.
who ran much more. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so at this point now, like I said, the few things that you might make weird or your eyes will look weird. This is one where the shape of the eyebrow can look a little weird. But there are some theories that I bring back from illustrating or even doing makeup. If you can imagine, say, a 90-degree angle, and then look at maybe an angle of about 60 degrees or so, or how much would this be? Yeah, about 60, a little more than 45. So the 45 is exactly this angle. 60 would be a slightly upright. If you were to imagine the tip of the nose somewhere over here and an angle, a pencil kept at the tip of the nose, and then you draw a line going outward, this point would be where your brow is going to turn on the side. And very often people turn the eyebrow exactly like the eye. So sometimes our brain is giving us information that we have not really observed or studied. So in that case, what you do is you can make a line. So this is the line which I have made, which is about the same distance as the height of the eye. In the vicinity of this line, I start off with making a rectangle shape like that. But the bottom line, I can turn upward. Yeah, even a 45 degrees should be fine. And there I can turn the eyebrow downward. So over here, it almost looks like this is a concentric circle.
Aditi, may I please ask you one more time?
Yeah.
What was the height of the first line of the eyebrow? You said it is the same distance as
About the same distance as from the lower to the upper lid.
okay, got it.
Yeah, so that gives you some vicinity to start with. And now to fill the eyebrow up, like I said, we make the lines in radiating directions as we proceed from the center to the outside. So start off straight and then start moving to the side, and here overlap the eyebrows. Most eyebrows you'll see, unless you actually comb them, they don't shy from sitting on top of each other at different angles. But you won't have an eyebrow over here that is pointing in the opposite direction or pointing straight up. So don't do that. And then a few lines, you can go outside of the line also to make the eyebrow look a little more natural. Outside, but from the underside of that shape. Now the line that you make for the eyebrow must be a line like this, which doesn't have a start and doesn't have a finish. So it's like what I would call like a pendulum line. Imagine the pencil is attached to a pendulum, and when it comes down, it just makes contact with the paper and then is risen up by the pendulum again. So you come in gently, pressure, and lift gently. So you don't have a distinct start and a distinct end of the line. And you can do this in both directions. So this helps to draw very fine eyebrows and create depth where you need it also. Now for the eye now, we are going to put a little bit of a reflection by way of making an oval shape on any side in the top half of the iris. Right now, we are just going to make one, but very often you'll see sometimes even in a brightly lit place, there could be half an eye or 2, 3 other dots. Or if it is an ad for a makeup brand, you'll see like 6 lights right around the lens. Those are they look very ugly in a picture. But this is enough. Then the easy way of sketching this is first just put light pressure on the pencil and shade the entire iris. Very light pressure over the entire iris except for the highlight, obviously. Elaine, hold the book. Thank you. Then, after you've shaded this, just loosely identify an oval shape towards the bottom of the iris. Just keep an eye over there. And then from the top, we are going to do a second shading, which is going to be dark to light. So we're going to start dark. And as we come towards that oval shape, we are going to lighten the color a little bit. So you don't stop at a horizontal line, but like a fuzzy oval shape so that you get a darker shadow on the top and a little light at the bottom. Now this is like the water drops that we've done. Do you remember? Let me see if we have that handy. It is basically the same principle. We have a disc-like shape, which is transparent, which has on the base of the disc, you have color. Then you have a lens, which is like a dome. And then it receives light from different directions and transmits light also. So pretty much like how we done these water drops. You have a little shadow on the top, a highlight. If I were to put an iris over here, a lens over here, it could easily become an eye. Except that this shadow will make it look as if my lens is like a big dome on top. It's not that big. So it's the same principle because in a certain way, the nature of both of these is the same. They're spherical to some extent. Now, once this is done, we have to come to another troublesome point, which is the lashes. So the lashes are, again, organized in such a way that they provide a certain thickness and shadow to the upper lid. We have more lashes and bigger eyelashes on the top of the eye than the top lid than the bottom lid. And the structure of the eyelashes is such that actually they protrude forward. They don't really go as high as often beginners draw the lashes. What they're doing is they're compressing the picture. They want to draw length, so they feel the only way I can show the lash is by doing this. That makes it a very abstract picture. The best way to draw lashes, which incidentally will all point in a radial direction, which is like this. And the ones towards the center are less and shorter, and towards this, the inner eye are shorter and fewer. The middle of the eye are longer, and the side, again, longer and more numerous. So you start off with one line, which is just like this. This is a long lash. And you can make the lashes curl downward a little bit as you go towards the outer eye. And the inner eye, make the lines smaller. Now, somewhere between this, you will have some lashes which come together, so you get two lines that join up. And then you can have some lashes, most of them will join up. This will make it look natural. If you make them really, really big and thick, then that would mean that they've applied some makeup or fake lashes nowadays. Those look really crazy. And for the bottom, just make a few lash lines in the same way, or oriented in the opposite direction, but radiating. Okay, so this is the basic structure of the eye, and we will encounter many of the same things when we are drawing the eyes that I have shared with you. Now, Elaine, you will be able to draw the first eye pretty well because it is all the lines move to the left.
No. Ah, this one. Yes, sorry. Yeah, I thought you were talking about the one we just did.
No,
It's
no.
I've done the same thing as you did,
Yeah.
and yet I feel my eyes the other way. You know, it's so strange. The
Oh.
tear duct is on this side, everything. But when I look at it, it looks as if it's looking at me like this one, which is on the screen.
That is so strange.
It's very weird. Yeah.
Okay, so now you can draw this one and see, because for you, everything will just be reversed, but you'll be able to draw this a lot better. Okay, now I just want to go over how you will see this. Remember what we drawn first. We drawn the horizontal line, but you will see that this may not be a horizontal eye. Our face can move in various angles. So this line may be the wrong line. If I were to be true to myself and to the eye, this line is slightly
Slanted.
downward. These are things we have to now start observing with the eye.
Right.
Then you have the upper lid, which is curved a certain way. You don't need to artificially create one bigger than the other. Go by what you see. And in this case, looks like both the curves on both sides are equal. Then you have a tear duct, that comes outward. Yeah. Then we have, see how the inner line of the lower lid comes inside. Then there's a bit of the membrane that you see, which you accommodate for. I'll be drawing all of this so you'll know how to translate this. Then in this case now, as much as I said the eye, the fold of the eye is bigger on the inside than the outside. Here, it's exactly opposite. So we will go by what this eye tells us. And then look at the distance between from the bottom to the top of this eye. Coming over here, if I were to draw a line like this gives me the ballpark of where I can draw the eyebrow. Now, to draw the eyebrow, again from the outside, you will notice that this is almost concentric to the shape of the eye itself on this side. But then the line comes down. All these angles can be figured out. Like this is pointing somewhere between 3 and 4 o'clock on a clock face. How high this goes can be measured by seeing the height of maybe the iris. Make that your unit and say, okay, the eyebrow is almost as tall as the diameter of the iris as I see it, or the height of the visible iris as I see it. Then you get the height. For the angle again, you see that this starts off at 1 o'clock from here, and then it's almost a parallel line, and then it goes downward. So all the information you will get if you ask the right questions. How far? What is the shape? With respect to a previous shape, how does this look? And you will be able to get all the answers. And those answers that you don't get with the questions that you ask me. Okay, all right. Now, for the others, we have to do the same thing, but I'll tell you which eye we will make. This is the third picture. So all the right-handed people can make the right side eye, And Elaine can make the left eye because it'll be easier for her to make all the shapes sweeping outward from one side to another than the other way around. All right, shall we try this? Okay, now
Yes.
one instruction, another instruction among the many instructions that I'm giving. Whatever you're drawing, do not erase. Start off drawing very lightly. You can draw a big eye, a medium-sized eye. Those are both good. Don't draw an eye that's very small. So give yourself that horizontal line to start with, at least as a starting point. And then you can see that the eye that we are drawing is again slightly tilted downward. And make your shapes like this. Make the lines flowing. Once you are sure of the shape, only then you can darken if you feel the need. And all these structural lines that you have drawn, let them remain in your picture. That's all. So I've drawn the shape. Now I can see that my iris over here is almost filling the eye.
Aditi, we're drawing the first eye. You have sent or the third one?
The third one, third one.
Ah,
Yeah. For right-handed people, third one. First one is for Elaine. With everything you draw, you can look for cues on whether you've got this shape right, whether you've got this shape right. And here we have extra highlights. So you will have that highlight again seen in the this part. What would this part be called? The sclera, is it?
The
Is it-
white part is the sclera.
Yeah, yeah.
And just one more correction. The part that you mentioned as lens should be pupil, because the lens is actually behind the pupil. And what you see in front is the little opening, which is called the pupil.
All right, great.
Yeah.
Pupil and lens is behind.
Yes.
Correct. So we would never actually see the lens. It's protected by the pupil, right?
And one more, one more correction. I'm so sorry.
No, I want this so that I don't keep making this mistake.
Yes, exactly. That's why I want to correct you.
Yeah.
The part that you keep referring to as iris is actually the cornea.
Gone.
And the upper lid covers the cornea by about 1 to 2 millimeters, which is what you showed us perfectly.
Hmm.
Actually, the lower lid should touch the lower margin of the cornea. Okay, because if it doesn't touch, we call it lid retraction. Okay,
Oh,
anatomically.
okay.
But it's okay. There are anatomical deviations, and none of us are really perfect, you know. So there are slanting eyes and oblong eyes, whatever. But the iris is actually behind the cornea, and that iris is what gives us brown, green eyes, blue eyes, whatever, Aishwarya eyes, whatever. So just
Yeah.
these corrections, okay.
Right. Thank you. So the reason I was calling it iris is because at some point we have to color it.
Yes, okay.
So that's why then the iris. But good. And now I will distinguish the two. So when
Yes.
we're drawing this part, it's actually the cornea. And then when we have to put in the color, that will be the iris. That makes
Iris.
a lot of sense.
That's right.
Thank you. Thank you. This is nice. So-
And this, as you said, the
Yeah.
pupil is in front of the lens. But the pupil is essentially a hole or not?
It is a
Okay.
hole. Yeah.
Okay.
And it becomes big or small depending
Yeah.
upon the amount of light that enters your eye.
Right, right.
It's like the diaphragm in a camera.
Hmm.
But because why is it so black then, and why can't you see the lens?
You cannot see the lens. First of all, the size of the pupil, unless the lens becomes hazy, which is a cataractous lens, only then you can see it like a moti. That's why we call it moti bindu. You know, then it becomes gray white.
Right.
Until lens is transparent.
Just clear. So actually you're looking right into that liquid in the eye, is it?
And the lens is not a liquid. It is a
No,
solid lens.
behind the liquid. You're looking straight through. When you're looking at this picture, when I see the black,
Yes.
that black is actually just the dark because there's no light inside. It's the liquid that you look through.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Aditi, one question. I'm looking at the reference picture that you shared for the right eye.
Yes,
So if you see then the black, okay, I'm sorry, what is that called? The black
pupil.
pupil, right? The circle.
Yeah.
It is absolutely touching the lower, lower lid margin also. So should we draw like that, or should it end a little prior to the margin?
No,
May I interrupt here?
Yeah,
Yes.
This photograph is perfect. The lower lid should approximate the lower margin of the cornea.
Mm,
This is perfect. There is no lid retraction in this.
wonderful.
And the upper lid should cover the cornea by 1 mm.
Okay.
So the first picture has a lid retraction.
Yes. Okay.
So this one, Sonal, you
Yes.
have to draw as you see. That's the whole point. So while I may give you a formula, which is this,
Mhm.
that only indicates more or less where stuff might be, the vicinity. So like I explain, if whenever you get a formula in art, unlike maths, this formula points you in the general direction.
Right.
So if you ask somebody in Bombay where or they ask you where your house is, you will say it's in Pune. That's a general direction. That's not even a direction. If they say, okay, where is Pune? Then you say, okay, head south and keep walking for 2 days and you'll come to my house. So that's also a general direction. So many of these formulas of in art are a general direction. So at least you have a starting point. Then as you come closer to the destination, you'll ask the next person, okay, do I take this road or that road?
Yeah.
So that is where you start, like the question you asked me. In this case now, we deviate from the formula. The cornea and the iris is not drawn above, it is touching the bottom lid. So we draw it touching the bottom lid. And we make these minor adjustments so that we draw the eye that we are referencing and not the eye from the formula.
Got it.
Okay. So the reason I'm asking you to make multiple lines is just because it is easier to make more lines than one perfect line. In these lines, you will find that the correct line might be hiding. And that will emerge from shading, which we have to do as we go along. The highlight over here is very different from the oval highlight that we made earlier. And the pupil is hiding behind part of the highlight. So you will also have to recreate that. In many cases, you will notice that there is a little gap in the color of the iris and the lashes, especially in this picture, because sometimes it's just a highlight. Sometimes it's the lashes that are so large and so thick that you might be able to see a part of the upper lid, inner upper lid, because of that as well. Now, in this case, the lashes have been made really long because there's mascara. And again, the height of the eye above gives a starting point. Draw that horizontal line. And then draw the shape of the eyebrow for now. And it's almost straight. Now, once you've drawn this, you can start shading like you see the eye also. Now, this time the iris is darker. I've deliberately chosen eyes which are light so that we can also draw and paint the iris. Now this time I am making the same kind of shading, a very, very light color with pencil through the eye. But the edge of that iris is dark, and it often is very dark in most eyes. From there, I will send out some lines towards the center. So it's here you can, I think you can really appreciate the mechanism of that, how the lens must be working or how the iris must be functioning to twist things around. And these lines are very, very gentle. So I'm not making very dark lines. Otherwise, that looks very unnatural. Some of these lines are dark and touch the pupil, but they're always, always radiating, which means that if you have a circle, you can't have a line on the circle that is not going perpendicular to the center of the circle. It must look like it's leaving at a perpendicular angle. Now, once we've got the structure done, here the fun begins. You will notice that the sclera, which is the white of the eye, is not really white in this picture. It is largely gray, and there are shadows. So we start adding a light shadowy layer. This is very, 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 very light, but it is there. And it's this that will help distinguish between the highlights in the eye. Right now, once we shade the eye, it looks really ugly. It looks like something's gone wrong. But that's because the rest of the skin around the eye is light. We need to make that in the same tone as the eye as well. Now I'm shading this with just finger movement. The pencil is held really far away, about 2 inches away from the paper, from the tip. And I am just making lines in one direction, barely touching the paper. And you can go all around the eye, filling in this color or this shade.
हॅलो मला फोन करायचा नाही सांगितलं होतं.
Now to equalize it, you can shade in the opposite direction in the few places where it is slightly darker, or in another direction to cross over the spaces. And this time I'm just taking the line into the eyebrow as well. Now there's a highlight over here, so we want to keep it. That's because the skin over there puffs up a little bit. There's also a highlight on the upper lid, so we won't color that up. And you can steadily start increasing the depth of the line, the darkness of the line. At this stage, the eye really looks very weird. It almost looks very sickly. But that's because we haven't drawn a lot of the dark parts. And little by little, as the dark parts start coming in, the eye will start looking normal. I'm adding a little base shadow to the eyebrow as well. And then I will very meticulously, with a nice sharp pencil, draw some of the eyebrow hair the way I see them. It is important to overlap a few of these lines to maintain some illusion of depth. And when you come to this edge, remember that these eyebrows are not pasted over. So you will have a few eyebrows coming outside of the line that'll make it look more natural. And from above, the angle will also be distinct.
I don't remember class. I told you, no?
So one of the steps where you start mastering making the lashes is in making the eyebrows. Just the quality of the line. Now the lid part is a fuzzy line. There's a shadow and there is a fold. If we draw just one line, it'll look like just the fold without shadow, and that can look very stark. And the fold ends very peacefully in the corner with a line that just trails off. Then you do have a certain amount of shading on the upper lid to make it deeper and darker. And also in the area where we have the tear duct. So at every point, you must be looking at your reference image. You can darken a certain thicker area along the top lid. That is the edge of the lid from the bottom of the lashes to a little bit above there where the lashes, you can see the lashes emerge. And then we have a lower lid as well. Even in these shadows, you'll notice that the shadow isn't uniform throughout. In some places, it's a little darker. In some places, it's a little lighter. Can be a frustrating exercise, but it's great for observation. And then in the lens, not lens, the cornea, you will notice the reflection of the lashes. That we're going to do last. We're not going to ignore that. as you darken things, you'll notice how what you had darkened earlier might look not as dark. So you balance that tone out. So here's the thing about all arts, huh? Well, all kinds of painting or art forms in visual arts. You may start off at one point, but through the artwork, you may have to keep adjusting the various factors depending upon how the artwork is developing. And I think that is also something that's very unusual about art. You may set off, maybe it is a little bit like cooking. When you are cooking, you're constantly tasting and, oh, I'm frozen. Sorry, at what point did I lose you guys?
Mm.
As the artwork develops, you may have to sometimes.
Oh, wow. Okay, great. So, yeah. So, you may have to keep adjusting things like darkness, shadows, highlights. In this case, with pencil and watercolor, well, in pencil, you can always erase, but I'm not going to give you that solution. So you can only keep getting it darker and deeper. So once you have made that light colored shading all over, in the beginning, it was looking very bizarre. But then as the shades around it started becoming darker, now that shadow inside the eye doesn't look so offensive, right? So it's never a finished shade. You can move on from one shadow to the next and you can still keep adjusting it. Now, the trick here is to keep your line very, very light. Don't get too excited and make a dark tone too fast. I literally, and this is absolutely my most favorite subject, drawing eyes. So I tend to introduce this into class at least once a year. That way I can really take it to town. So in this case now, I notice that there's a little bit of a teardrop or a little moisture by the base of the lid. So I will highlight that. I will just leave that out a little bit and shade around it. Just a little shade, not too much. Maybe uniform, but may not be uniform also. And then once that shade comes in, I will then darken a little bit of the iris. And I keep growing this. Then in the corner, it isn't that much. So I'm going to reduce that a little bit. There's a little white dot there, so I'll keep that. And then this is my lid, inner lid. Now come the lashes. Now for the lashes, we have to draw a few lines in this bottom right to top left. So those of you who remember your pencil yoga might remember that this is the hardest line to draw because we never draw a line like this, hardly ever. So tilt your hand a little bit and just draw one controlled line. Draw the line from up like this instead of trying to draw it like that. These are the places where practicing that pencil yoga will come in handy when you know that you can move your wrist around to draw a line that is a little inconvenient. And that line, then you can grow and make it bigger. Now, these are actually curves. So my line comes from the lid line, curves a little bit at just the start of the line, and then a very gentle curve outward and upward. And these lines should be smooth, ideally. Don't let it shiver too much. They don't need to be identical. Use the information to only figure out the lengths of your lashes. But if they are 1 or 2 micromillimeters to one side or the other, it won't make a big difference. So here, making that thick dark line is useful because our lashes don't all start from just one point. That will look ridiculous. They will be in layers. So some you see higher, some you see lower. And this will then make a nice canopy of lashes on top of the eye. Now I have to make the pupil very dark also. Otherwise, that mascara is totally overshadowing, literally, my pupil. Around the pupil, there's a slight fuzzy shadow on the iris. That's just the color of the iris itself. And there are a million different color combinations in the eye. I remember once, many years ago, National Geographic had taken pictures of, close-up pictures of just the irises of the world. And they were absolutely fascinating. Now, all the sharp lines can come in at this point. So there will be a sharp line over here and over here. Just a few lines. They don't all just touch and match each other. Just in a few places. And the bottom, the sharp lines will come from the bottom lashes, which also I think have had a little mascara put in them. But do make these like the pendulous lines that I spoke about. They should be light and you should not be able to tell where they start from. Or end for that matter. At this point, I realized that maybe I can darken some of the eyebrows also, not all, just the ones in the center and the bottom part. At this stage, it's mostly done. I don't need to do anything more unless I feel the need to add a cast shadow or reflection actually of the lashes. This is too intense. You don't need to bother with that. They're very tiny, tiny lines, and in drawing that, you might just spoil your illustration. So forget it. Make it a little dark here. My eye is looking too scared because it's not being covered properly by the lid. Fixed it. Okay. So there are a bunch of different eyes that I have given. Not all eyes follow this formula. Like, for example, we have this eye. Here, the lens, what's it called?
Cornea.
Cornea is looking a little oval because the eye is looking a little to the side. And the pupil is not in the exact center, but that is also going to appear oval because that is also looking slightly to the side. So you'll notice how the distance on the left between the edge of the pupil and the edge of the cornea is a little less on the left-hand side and a little more on the right-hand side. These are very important details to notice. This is the deviation we need to do from the formula so that we don't land up making the pupil right in the center of this cornea, because then it will look like this eye is actually on the side, but it's looking towards us, which will definitely mean looking London, talking Tokyo. Right? So these are the subtle things that we have to learn. Here again, you'll notice the shape. This may be slightly circular, it's imperceptibly flattened, but there is a slight difference between or where the pupil is pointed towards, again, so that it doesn't look like at us. Oval cornea, a slightly oval or ovoid pupil. Same thing over here. And here you can see this totally bizarre. There seems to be no connection between the cornea, the iris, the pupil. It's all on its own. But we will do a further study of the side eye. But in the meantime, you can always do this as practice. And the other eyes we have are these. These are beautiful. They're all facing forward, but looking all over the place. These are very nice to practice. Plus, now that we know how to draw one eye, we have to draw two eyes that make sense together. That's the next tactic we have to learn. Okay, so we are at 10
Aditi,
past.
sorry, the little eye, the ones that you just showed,
Mhm.
when they obviously look like children's eyes, like a small child.
Mhm.
And the only way I think you can make them look like a small child is that you don't make that tear duct so big. I think, or maybe the lid on top is different. Some things are different that make you look as if it's a children's child eye, right?
Yeah. So a child's eye is you can make an eye look like a child's eye if the proportion of the upper and lower lid with the cornea is small. So let's say you have a very filled up cornea within the upper and lower lid. That is how a child's eye will look. And as we grow older, all our skin everything starts growing. So the eye becomes bigger as well. But the eyeball remains the same size. So our eye just stretches around it. So you can tell the age of a person by seeing that, and you don't even have to tell it. Your eye will know it. And very often when there are slightly older people who look like they have a young looking face, their eyes have not have not expanded as much as most eyes would. So suddenly they look very young. A lot of Hollywood actors, I think, tend to use lenses which have a slightly larger iris color than their existing iris color to make themselves look more youthful, because you can't fool the eye unless you change it with the iris. And you will notice this in Robert Downey Jr.'s eyes from his earlier movies to the Iron Man movies. So he looks very youthful in those movies because they've changed the proportion of the iris, is my conjecture. Because he suddenly looks like he's 20 years younger. It doesn't happen. All right.
Maybe our doctor will be able to tell us also.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Vijay, please
Children's eye.
contribute.
Yes, yes, I will contribute, though I don't agree with this. Okay. The iris color can deepen, yes, but then I don't think it is related to age. It can
No,
get
not the color, the size.
Yeah. The size, yes, because the lids lose their elasticity and they tend to droop. Then there are crow's feet and wrinkles and all these features that you must incorporate when you show an aging eye,
Mm,
right?
correct. Yeah.
Bags under the eyes. So, when you smile and everything crinkles up.
Right. Okay, so Viju and Bhavani, would you like to attempt another eye, while with the rest of the class, I can show them the painting of the abstract face?
Sure. What should we do?
You can choose any of the other eyes that I have shared with you. Yeah, choose that one. And just practice it. If you have any questions, just raise a hand over here. So then that pops up at my end, and then I can, so that I'm not interrupted in the middle of the painting. And I'll show the painting to Neeta, Elaine, and Sonal.
Yes.
All right. Hi, sorry again. My lights have gone and come back, and the Wi-Fi switches off and comes back. So this might happen again, but I will rejoin. Don't worry about that. Okay, now for the face, the first thing we'll do is apply an all over wash of a deep color. Oh, 1 second, I think my brush is missing.
So we'll use a little thicker brush, right? Like a 7 or something.
Yeah, you can do 7, 10 also you can use, depending on
Okay.
the size you have.
Oh,
So I'm using a 10, and now this is a fun thing that you can do with abstract portraiture, even realistic portraiture, that wherever you've got shades of warm colors, in that itself, you can put in a predominant color that you want to use. Like in this case, I'm using yellow ochre. And a little bit of the other colors will come in and add a little depth, some richness to the shade that you're trying to make. You'd be surprised how this can impact your picture. Even if we are making a lovely chocolate brown kind of skin, a little bit of red in it can really, really make the skin pop. If you're unsure about your color, you can test it on a rough paper. Please don't test it over here. Once you're sure, if you want to record it, then make a nice proper rectangle or a square and note down its breakup. My colors are yellow ochre, burnt umber, a little bit of scarlet, which is lying over here, a little bit of crimson, which is lying over here. And that's given me this very beautiful reddish bronze color. So I want you to see how I paint this. Don't paint with me, just observe this. We have to create some kind of depth in the picture. If we paint the whole thing just flat and let it be, then that might not be sufficient. So I'm going to leave the eyes unpainted, and I am going to then paint over the entire skin fairly quickly, because I want to leave the color slightly damp and come back into it. Keep your book tilted so that you can use gravity to pull this down like we do a wash. I'm going to keep a small section on the nose, on the right side of the nose, unpainted. If a little bit of your skin color goes into other parts like the hair or the lips or even the textile above, it's okay. If you were not making colored lips, you could use the same color to go over the lips, and you can leave a little highlight on the top of the lip over here, bottom lip. Now, before going any further, in the wet itself, I'm going to apply, this is the part I wanted you to observe, a little shadow underneath her forehead, at the forehead underneath her scarf. Just drop in a little bit on the cheekbones on the sides and just a little at the lid. Here it's become a little too dark, so I'm going to go back into it later and adjust it. It can remain lighter, but I don't want to fiddle with it anymore because I don't know. I know it's going to lighten up. And you can fill up the rest or not. We can just keep this very colored also. So keep the colors translucent. Don't use too much paint. All right, now you can give it a shot. Now, while the face is drying, you can make some kind of pattern on the headscarf. We see that there is some reverse batik kind of print in white here. You can imagine a pattern and recreate just bits and pieces of that, in very abstract shapes. And because this is an abstract illustration, you can also add some of your own. And you can choose what you want to paint in what color. So I'm going to be painting this in scarlet, but I'll do it later. And because this is an abstract painting and the headscarf covers so much space, you can spend a lot of time in creating some nice abstract design on this as well. Now I'm going to color her hair an orange color with burnt sienna shades in the darker parts. And that's because, remember, this is an abstract painting. So we have the freedom to do a lot with color. This is an absolute orange shade. If you are uncomfortable with this orange, like I used to be in the past, I won't force you to use orange. Use any other shade that you like. Keep it bright, maybe. And for this, you can use a thinner brush. I'm using a number 10 because my number 10 is pretty primed and can give me good tips. So painting into the corners is not very difficult, but you could change to a number 6 maybe with a fine point. To remind you again, in order to maintain your brushes, please make sure that you keep your brushes upright and not flat in a box where the hairs can be bent. When you are rinsing the brush, only rinse at the surface of the water. Don't plunge your brush and distort it at the base. When you're rolling it out, roll outward and drain the brush completely, reinforcing the tip. And when you have to wipe the brush, don't again plunge into this and do some musty over here. Always make a backward action so that you keep making your point more and more sharp at all times. And if there are days when you feel you're not going to use, if you're ever that organized, take all your brushes, wash them with soap in the same manner, just in this action. Leave just a little bit of soap in the brush, twist the brush a little bit up to a point, and then store it upright. There are also suggestions to store your brushes like this, where you can clip them onto something and store them facing downward instead of up. And that could also help keep the hairs down because of gravity. Okay, now I've got these horrible marks over here. I really hate them. So I am using a little burnt umber and this is only because I used very wet paint. So here's what I'm doing. I'm using burnt umber in the earlier skin color, which was yellow ochre, burnt umber, this scarlet, and a little crimson. This time my color is going to be a little thicker, not like the wash. Now, if I want to make the burnt umber darker, then I can use one of the blues instead of black. At some point, the burnt umber doesn't become dark. So I use a cobalt blue and make it a deeper brown. This is a much more, I guess, vibrant brown, and it's slightly different from when you add black. I'm using this flat color for the eyebrows first to check if the darkness is sufficient. Okay, this works. And also for just above the lid to cast a shadow. And then the lighter tone, before I use the brown, the blue, I'm going to create this shape here. I want you to see this. This is for the nose. Again, you don't have to do it. There's a little roundness to the nose. I'm doing it only because I want to get rid of that terrible shape I only have created. So I'm going to give the nose a contour. And I'm creating this shape on the side of the nose to make it more aquiline. Unfortunately, this is on the correct side. The highlight is on the right. So it will not look too ugly. And on the right side, just to balance out, I will create another shape, but it will only go halfway. If you've made your shading well before, then you don't have to do this.
Aditi, my shading I've done, but now because of like a cloud, she seems to be slowly getting a beard and a mustache.
Okay. Wait.
Meaning, you know
So-
what? Yeah, you finish and then I'll tell you.
Yeah, so no problem. We still have to add, so the same skin tone, we have to add over here, underneath the nose, but not in that division between the lips. So a little bit over here is fine. Over here is also fine. And in the lips. So these are going to be natural lips, not colored. And then you can give a shape like this, an inverted curve at the neck, which can start off dark like the eyebrow, and then you can make it lighter by color blending. So these shadows play a very important role in making the face look convincingly three-dimensional. You can tell that it's an abstract picture, but these shadows make a big difference. So I love making shadows, and I'll make these shadows on the left side all through her jewelry also. But you don't have to be that anal about this. Just so that you know that that is a technique that's good enough. Right, now it's 12:30. I'm gonna let you make the scarf the way you want to, the jewelry the way you want to. If you want to make it 3D, I think you know how to do it. Take whichever color you need to. Don't make it too colorful though. I'm just going to show you one bead. You don't have to make this. Keep a highlight on the bead and paint the rest of it. Beads with highlights tend to look very nice, and the shine on the beads will pick up the shine in her eyes. So give me 10 minutes. I want to show you how to make the eyes. And if you feel that it's too complicated to make it, to watch and make it, then just watch for now. And you can make it later. Just go to the end of this video and you can, when you start watching the recording, and just observe this for now. So I want to make the same kind of 3D effect on the eyes. We don't really need to, but just a little bit would be by adding a cerulean blue line running underneath the eyelid. I don't know if you can see it over here. It's very gentle, very thin, and it's not over here yet. And that runs through the cornea as well, because it's the same shadow that will give the cornea its darkness. Once that dries, I will choose whichever color. In this case now, I want to choose green so I can show you how the iris can be painted. We do the same thing, take a light color first and paint the entire iris in that color. Make sure that both eyes use the same shade if you are mixing a shade. And paint from bottom to top in this case, because where you lift off the brush, there the color might be darker. Even this is enough. We have a highlight in the eye, so painting this should be good enough. If you want to make it a little more intense, you can take the same color that you have made here, and after the paint dries, the first layer dries, you can paint. Oh, it's not even dried. I'm just dropping in color in the top half of the cornea section to create the iris. I personally enjoy putting that shadow and light in the eye. And at the very end, you can either take a pen or a pencil, or if you feel confident with a brush, we can make some lashes, but again, not compulsory. And this definitely after your iris dries. You can make it as simply as 2 lines sticking outward from about the same place in both eyes. And if you want a lipstick on her mouth, you can overlay this with something like a burnt sienna. Now, when you paint the fabric of her headscarf, either before or after painting that, you can put in a shadow there as well. This time you can make a generic gray color, which is a cobalt or ultramarine blue, burnt umber, and black combination. And use that, a very light shade of that, underneath the lines which are overlapping. This is not light by any means, nonetheless. This brings your abstract illustration a little close to realism. This is again, all these are, by the way, options that you can choose to use or completely ignore, because in abstract illustration, you can control a whole lot of things. They do not have to stick to reality. I personally just enjoy making shadows because I love how, even if something is an abstract representation of something else, it tends to look so much more believable and realistic, and something that you can reach out and touch. Oh, I have forgotten to put the burnt sienna in the hair. Okay. So here I get the opportunity to maybe make a texture with it. Not only this, I can also add more lines to it. And this will definitely be more graphic than what hair we would draw otherwise. Adding this color close to the neck will separate the hair from the body, but also give depth. So the hair in the back of the head will look dark. The hair in the front will look light. Okay, so that's it. I'm gonna leave it at that today, and I will allow you to fill in whatever textile you want to. We have just done textiles last month, so pick any of those African patterns and put bits and pieces of those in these various sections on the headscarf, and that should do it. Another thought is, sometimes I've done this. If the picture looks good like this, you can leave it like that. You can make a black and white, like a design like this on the scarf and fill it up, or even leave it flat, because there's so much happening below the face with her jewelry that all of this already balances out, and the face gets the importance that it needs. So you don't really need to make anything else. So I'll leave mine the way it is right now. Again, a few things I'm unhappy with is the edge over here. I could have done this when the color dried, but maybe next time. Okay.
I want to ask, I was doing the nose, but the color bled. I mean, it's become cloudy. Can you
Okay.
see?
I'll pin it and have a look. Yeah.
So it's looking, I mean, how do I fix it now?
Wait, your camera is on this side, to your left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that nose has become little, it's not as sharp as it's become cloudy because I think the lower layer had not dried up.
Ah.
So,
Okay, so you can go over just the face part with a deeper color, the same color again. So
the
it'll
whole,
become like a third layer. Yeah.
okay.
And this time, have you painted in the eyes as well?
Yeah, I didn't realize it went in, yes. So
Yeah.
maybe I'll draw another picture and then do it.
No, wait, but before you go there, you can paint a second or a third layer for
Okay.
all the face, dodge the eyes, wait till it dries, paint a fourth layer also.
Okay.
So those translucent layers will slowly make the difference, the contrast between that shadow or cloud color and the base a little less obvious.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I did. Aditi. I just painted it over and she became darker, but at least that cloud around the mouth disappeared. She still has funny coloration, but she's
Okay.
become really dark. She's still cloudy in bits. You know how she's still got a faint mustache and weird stuff like that going on.
Yeah,
But
never mind that. That's so again, these are again the things now that you've noticed this. Next time when you're painting it, automatically your hand will move faster over there. I suspect
Aditi, too fast. I have suspect my water's too thin or something. I am always getting clouds when I do a wash. I don't know why.
are you holding
Too
them
much?
right?
Yes, yes. But when I put it back down, I think it just dries like that.
Yeah, so keep it upright
Upright.
Yeah, don't let any water collect
Okay.
when you are keeping it flat. You should just lift it off and then keep it flat.
Okay. So Aditi, when I do the darker shade for the nose, that means I need to wait for the first layer to dry and then only do it.
In this case, yes.
Yeah, because that's, it was a little wet, so it's become fuzzy.
Yeah. So in this case, you need to wait. But when we do realistic portraiture, or look, according to what you need at the end of the day, you have to decide whether you want a wet on wet flow, even if it's patchy, or you want a sharp edge. When you paint on dry stuff, you'll get a very sharp edge.
Yes.
And if you still want a sharp edge, but not as deep, then just
yeah.
change the depth of the color, and then you layer it differently.
Okay, I will try.
Okay, but you can avoid the shadow on the nose. Again, like I said, I did it because I had one shadow coming over there and looking ugly. So
Okay.
I added it, but you don't really need to. You can focus on the shadow underneath the nose, that little bit underneath the nose, underneath the lips, and that's enough.
Okay. Yeah. We'll try.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, great.
Aditi, yours is looking so gorgeous. She's looking like a Disney princess.
So pretty.
Very beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you, thank
My
you.
daughter is also watching and she's like so amazed looking at the way the
Oh,
face
hi.
transformed. Yeah.
I have been making faces, I mean, not making faces, drawing faces since I was 15 or so, or even younger, like 12 or 13, because I was fascinated with drawing a face. And it's just something, and then I've spent so much time on it over so long that now it comes a lot easier.
Yeah, so Aditi, yeah, that's why she was asking me, how does your teacher know so much? I said she's been practicing and you don't have to be scared of failing. She was drawing alongside. She just wants
Let's
to
see
show
what
you
you've
that.
done. Yes. Oh my God. Let's see. I'm just gonna pin it so all of us can have a look at it. Wow. Oh, very well done.
Very nice.
Very
I
nice.
think, and this is without following your instructions. She's just listening little. I told her first hear her out, and the instructions are so detailed. But I think kids by nature are impatient. They just want to get started. So
They do.
bring
Yeah.
alongside, yeah.
And now I'm writing the calligraphy portraiture that you wrote. I'm trying.
Oh, do that. Yes, why not? You should. It's very nicely done. I'll be sharing this picture and the picture of the eye so you can
Yeah.
practice some more.
This
Aditi-
Friday I'll be trying your trial class because it's
Oh, okay.
interesting.
Yay. That'll be great. Okay.
Aditi, may I show
Yeah.
you the eye that I did?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
please.
It's looking up. Can you see this?
Yes.
The one
Very
where-
nice.
Wonderful.
It's perfect. It's really looking up and shine, wine, everything.
The
Beautiful.
corneal highlight happens to be at the lower edge of the cornea.
Correct.
So I tried to get it.
Very
Is-
nice.
Is the
Very-
proportion okay?
Yes, it seems okay because I will also look at what I see in the reference image.
Yeah.
I'm trying to see which image this one is.
Is
Uh,
the
is it
fourth
from our picture? It's from the fourth image and then the one on the left, no?
Yeah. I tried to do both eyes, but I fell short of time. So I just did.
Never mind. Yeah, it's looking beautiful. Very nice.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for this.
Oh,
Thank
my pleasure. Thank you for coming in class because this was
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
somebody who understands the eye from so many different
Yes.
angles. It's
Yes.
really a pleasure.
And told us so much too.
Yeah.
Aditi, I've put my eye on down. I don't know
Okay.
whether you've seen it, but
Uh,
it's just before hers.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Oh, very nice, Elaine. You've
Came
come
out
a long
okay,
way.
no?
I think so.
Long way since my first class.
Yes, yes. Look at
Yes.
mine. Very
Yeah.
nice.
Okay, so this tear thingy is too fat.
Yes.
I'm sure our doctor will tell us what that means if you have a swollen tear duct. It's certainly infected. Yeah. And then I also found out that the eyelashes sometimes grow in the lid margin
Yes.
and not on the edge all the time. Is that
Yes.
funny? Okay.
So that is something that I've just observed of the eye.
Yeah.
But you might be able to share some insight into that also. So the eyelashes, we often draw them as coming from one area outward, but they're often multiple. So they emerge from almost a thin layer of skin, some in the front, some behind them. That's why then we have a thicker, like there's a volume to the lash.
Yeah.
If we don't draw it like that, then it looks too artificial. It looks like Barbie eyes.
Yes, you're right.
Great. So one can learn a lot of anatomy just by illustration. You don't need, even if you don't know the names, those labels you can put, but keen observation can really teach you a lot. Okay, thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
We will be making the rest of the features of the face next week. So we will do nose and mouth together. If time permits, I'd also like to do faces, like the whole face with just a sketch of all these. But as you can see, it takes a long time to just do one element at a time. And through the week, I'm going to recommend that you practice the eye, keep making the different sorts of eyes that I have shared with you. Again, go on to any site and look for eye references. One tip is that you can look for black and white pictures, because then you don't have to translate the color of skin and the iris and all the eye features into black and white. You have to just replicate the tone. It's a lot easier for faces. And next week we'll take on noses and mouths, and noses from the front and side, mouth from the
Yes, please, from that profile, it's very tough.
yes, definitely.
Yes, very well. Thank you.
All right,
Thank
I'll
you.
see you next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you, Aditi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.